This story is a prologue to a modern princess. The doctor asked, "You got your appetite back?" "Yeah." She nodded. "How is your nausea?" "It comes on every morning." "Along with vomiting?" Laura nodded in response. "It's normal in early stages of pregnancy." "Congratulations." I hugged and kissed my wife. The doctor then warned, "This is the longest pregnancy you kept so far. So let's stay away from new foods we hadn't ate and keep allergens out of our reach. I'll schedule you for prenatal checkup," the doctor said with a smile. "Will do. Thank you, doctor." He then left. "We'll be careful this time," I said to Laura, and she nodded. Everything had been going well lately, but one day at an event, I got drunk and somehow ended up in bed with Celine. I splash water on her and, "I can't believe you stoop this low. Where are the pictures?" "What pictures? Don't play dumb. This was clearly your setup. Planning to use this for me as blackmail? It's not going to work." "Morgan." I targeted Celine Judah's family company and took my wife's phone. I promised to give it to her at the end of her pregnancy. It was a good thing I did because my suspicions turned out to be right. Celine sent pictures of us to Laura. I found dirt on David and reported him to the police. Turns out he was doing drugs on the side, and now he was on the run. I also included Celine onto his case. Due to the overwhelming evidence, she went into hiding. 9 months later, we were blessed with a beautiful baby girl who looks like me. Laura's parents and brothers also came to see their niece and granddaughter. "Have you thought of a name?" my mother-in-law asked. "How about Margot, like Morgan, since she looks like her father?" Laura said. "That's a beautiful name." My father-in-law said. Later he and my brother-in-laws pulled me over to talk at the hospital cafeteria. My father-in-laws took the initiative. "Morgan, we would like to apologize for not being of much help. Since the accident, I would love to have sent my wife over, but I have my own health problems to deal with." "That's not necessary, I understand. How's your new heart?" "Doctor says the surgery went well, but advised me to retire." After Laura had been in a car accident and couldn't remember him. My father-in-law had needed to have bypass surgery. Then after hearing that Laura had gone missing caused him to have a heart attack. Doctors advised him that it might not be the best thing for him to see Laura, while she was having fits and episodes left and right. While Mrs. Cross couldn't bear to see her daughter not remember them. Laura's older brother Jake then said, "We should have been more considerate, and visited. I can imagine you having to constantly watch what Laura puts in her mouth. I only hope that my niece takes after you in health. Looking after a sick child isn't easy. You had a big project that could finally salvage your company. She'll understand once she remembers." My other brother-in-law Jacob said, "Of course. Growing up, our lives revolved around Laura. Her long list of allergies were partly due to us. Always giving in to her demands. Whenever we would pass by a pastry shop, where everything looked delicious. In the end, we've always get blamed for not taking better care of her. That's why we didn't want her to go abroad." I understand fully what he meant. She gets an allergic reaction to local food items in the grocery store. How much more when she goes abroad? My father-in-law then said, "I still can't believe my daughter had resented me all this time. We have done our best to look after her. We could have easily helped our business. Instead we chose someone with a failing business. For her sake." He then looked at me and said, "I know about your bastard half-brother. I also know how his existence affected you and your mother. Everyone knew that. That's no secret to anyone." What my father-in-law said next surprised to me. "I also know that your fiancé back then cheated on you with your brother due to your financial difficulties. After knowing the feeling of being stabbed with a knife, I knew you won't hurt or cheat on Laura." A few days later, Laura and the baby were finally discharged. "I will take Margot," I said as I took the carrier. "Hun, you go ahead. I have to use the restroom," she said. "Okay, we'll wait downstairs," I said as I head to the elevator. We were getting ready to go home from the hospital. The baby and I waited in the car for a few minutes, until I felt that something was wrong. I called Laura's phone, but she didn't answer. I then called for security to search the hospital. I asked if they could check the CCTV footage. I then saw my wife being kidnapped. Chapter 6. It all came down. When I woke up, my arms were tied up and I was in the passenger seat of the car. You're awake. It was David. David, why, where are you taking me? I asked frantically. He smiled and said, you'll see. I looked at the window and saw the sea. I didn't want to know where he was going to take me. My hands were tied against the window. Luckily, he didn't bother to tie my feet. And I managed to kick him until the car veered off the road and off the side of a cliff. The airbags then caused me to lose consciousness. Everything around me was blurry. Where am I? I found myself walking into a restaurant with David. Don't worry, Laura, I'll help you collect evidence for the divorce. He said. No, I don't think I want to go through with it anymore. I'm pregnant. So, he asked casually. Well, now that I am. He will finally stay away from Celine. I know Morgan, he wants a child more than anything. He was really devastated when I had a miscarriage last time. I know with this he will finally stay away from Celine. All right, it's up to you. He said with a smile. I went to the restroom only to find David talking to someone. I didn't see her face, but she looked very sophisticated. When I returned to the table only to find out that it was Celine, who was talking to him. When I came closer and hid behind a tall planter, I heard Celine say while she was kissing David, just make her eat something and make her have a miscarriage, that's what happened last time. Then we'll see if Morgan doesn't divorce her himself. I run back to the table before they could see me. When David came back, I stood up and said, Morgan's looking for me. I have to go. These people are playing with me and my husband. At Morgan's absence, for 2 years abroad, is when I met David. We often spend time together despite his busy schedule, but when Morgan came back, we had rarely seen each other. When Mrs. Stone was dying, I found out from her that David's mother was Mr. Stone's mistress. I then kept a distance between me and David, until Celine returned. When she arrived, she told me to step aside and that I was just a replacement. I only use my unit when I needed time away from Morgan. I found it odd that David moved into the same building. He then offered to help me with getting a divorce from Morgan. Shit, I was playing into their hands. I stared at him as he said, but our food just arrived. No, he might get suspicious. I said as I sipped my water and added, I really have to go by. Those bastards are only using me to get to Morgan. I walked over to the car and started driving. I thought I was just out of breath from walking really fast. But then I realized that I was having an allergic reaction. But I haven't even eaten anything. I stopped the car at the stoplight and searched my bag for my EpiPen, but it was missing. I could have sworn it was in here. I then called the emergency hotline. Hello, what's your emergency? I'm driving my car, I can't breathe. All I had was water. Then it hit me. Stupid. They must have spiked my drink with something. I then remember an incident from my childhood, when an antibiotic medicine managed to give me an anaphylactic shock. I frantically searched my car for an EpiPen and accidentally stepped on the gas. The last thing I saw was a speeding truck crashing onto me. Then I suddenly remembered that diary. I didn't write those things. I never blamed or resented my parents either. I then remembered how attentive Morgan was. I then remember that someone sent me pictures of Morgan with Celine and her constant taunting and mocking of me for losing my child. All that correlated to me wanting to get a divorce. To think that she was conspiring with David all along. When I woke up again, I was still in the car along with David. I tried to free myself, but my movement caused the car to slide down. David. The car slid again and tumbled down headfirst into the sea. I saw David's body hitting the car interior several times before I lost consciousness again. I woke up to the sound of ambulance late at night. Then I remembered being rushed inside the hospital again. Laura. When I saw Morgan alone with my family, I cried and took his hand. With my last strength, I said to them, I remember you. Before I knew it, I was staring at my lifeless body. In 27 years I had escaped death. I always managed to survive. But this time my luck has finally run out. David died before they could pull him out of the car and he went down with it. After death my dad had a heart attack and died. Oddly enough, I managed to see his spirit before he passed on. I stayed for a while to look after my family. It's there that I learned that Celine died after giving birth to a daughter. She caught a disease called eclampsia. She left her daughter with her distant relatives. Meanwhile, Morgan was a mess. Mom is scolding him for not looking after Margot. I visited him in his dreams to say goodbye one last time. He ran over to hug me. I'm sorry, I should have protected you. It's not your fault. I'm sorry for not trusting you. You have to move on and take care of Margot. Do it for me. She still needs you. Promise me you will take care of her and not let her get sick. Promise me. Promise me that you will protect her. He then cried. I smiled and said, we'll meet again soon. I love you, Morgan. I said as I kissed him and I finally vanished. End of prologue. Like, comment and subscribe to be notified of when the main story is going to drop.